Today is Monday, March 23, 2020, and we're welcoming Edwin and Antonia.
Thank you so much, Maya, for your welcome and for setting this up, and just really a heartfelt welcome to everybody. I'm just aware that now we have 400 and more than 20 people on this call, and it's of course a special time that we're meeting. But I'm also really thinking about if we were meeting in person, what it is that we would be doing right now. Then we would be going around and we would be greeting each other. If there were people we know, then we might give them a hug. And if we're meeting people for the first time, maybe we would be shaking hands and so forth. And now we're meeting virtually, so we can't do that. But we can still take a moment to just pause and to connect with everybody who's on this call. And just imagining all the people who are here. You know, I'm sitting in Denmark, Edwin is sitting in the US. I know that there'll be people from many, many different corners of the world, and some will be listening to it, watching it later on. So, but we can still take a moment and just really imagine each other, see each other in our mind's eye, and greet each other. Maybe even, you know, just that sense of connection that so many of us, we have less of now, physical connection, but we can still connect emotionally. So just really greeting ourselves for being here tonight and greeting everybody else. You know, and if we were meeting in person, what we would do as we were greeting each other, we would look each other in the eyes, and then we would ask, you know, how are you? So we would be really interested in what is it like for us right now at these times. And as we can't really go around and have people speak, we have the chat box, and we can still get a sense of what kind of situation, how we are, the ones who are here at this call. So I would just really invite you just to use the chat box and maybe write something, you know, about where you are, what situation you're in, how things are for you right now. And it can just be maybe a word or a very brief sentence. Just so that we get a sense of who's here and how we are. And can we see if people are writing in the chat? Can we see it?
We have been receiving few words in the question box, like thank you, hello from Portugal and from other places. But yes, if people, you want to write down something in the chat box, please go ahead.
So we know people are saying hello to each other. We know people are coming from different places, from Mexico, from Portugal.
We have someone in California doing well. Greetings from Czech Republic. We have someone that's saying I'm grateful from USA. I'm in Long Island, New York. Very scary right now. Someone wrote uncertainty. Yeah. Someone else from Spain, quite serious about the coronavirus over there. Yeah. Someone else is writing, it's nice to be here with you. Yeah. Someone from Belgium, hello, Christophe. Yeah. In Paris, someone is frightened. Yeah. Yeah. And a person grateful. I mean, we have a lot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to.
No, that's really, but it, you know, it is really, really helpful because it brings to our awareness that we are gathering from around the world. and that, you know, we are just experiencing a variety of experiences, from being well to being frightened to being in a very scary situation, you know, from being grateful. So it's just a huge variety of different situations that we're in. And I think that this is something that's really important to be aware of. And one of the things that it really brings to mind for me is that, first of all, our togetherness, you know, that we have this opportunity to connect, and also that we are, all of us will be in a time where we will be facing vulnerabilities, where we'll be facing difficulties, but it's happening at a different pace also, so that we can, you know, sometimes we'll be stepping forward and being there for others. Sometimes we will be more on the receiving end. And that's one of the things that's really, really helpful to remember as we're facing what we all are facing now, that, you know, the pacing is slightly different. When somebody's moving out of something, maybe somebody else is moving into something, but that also that we can really recognize all the different experiences and the situations that we are in, even if it's not right at this moment. It's all emotions, experiences that we do recognize that we might have faced before, or that we are likely to come to experience in the time to come. So I think that this is really helpful, and I want to thank you for being willing to share some of that, and for us to give us the opportunity to connect in that way. So I would like also to invite us to come together in a short practice. So one of the really beautiful things with our practice is that what we're practicing now is what we've been practicing before, and it's also what we'll be practicing later on. So if we are new to practice, the practices that we begin to learn, and we'll talk more about that, these are really practices that can help us right now, but it's also practices that we can continue using and that can help us for the rest of our lives. And if we've been practicing for a long time, what we will be practicing now is what we've been practicing before. So this is really, the practice is the same, and this is what we can come back to. So right now what we can do is just taking a moment to pause. Just taking a moment and in a very simple way, just being aware of where we are. So that felt sense of, oh, I'm here. Sitting here. And we can feel the body on the cushion or on the chair or wherever we're sitting. And be aware of the room that we're in, the space around us. And either allowing the eyes to stay open, or if that feels more comfortable, gently closing the eyes. And allowing the posture to be adjusted. So there is this sense of sitting upright and at the same time of being grounded. Having a strong back and a soft front. and inviting the muscles in the body to relax. Not demanding anything, not forcing anything, but this gentle invitation. Allowing the muscles to be relaxed. And then we can just let awareness rest within the body. And as we're resting here, we can bring to mind why it is that we practice. Why it is that we logged onto this call tonight. Connecting with our longing or our heartfelt wish. The wish to be at ease. The wish to be okay. The wish to be there for ourselves, to be there for others. And really appreciating this quality of caring, this wish to do something for ourselves, to do something for others. And then again, just allow the awareness to rest within the body. What is it like to be in this body right now? What is the inner atmosphere? Do we experience tension, restlessness, tenderness? Just being aware of whatever comes to expression. without pretending. Pretending that things are different than they are. With this gentle touch of awareness, knowing how it is. And also what else is known. Maybe sounds, sounds from near, sounds from far. Maybe thoughts moving through the mind, images. So just allowing all of that. And also having this sense of just being in contact with the body. Awareness resting within the body. And if you've had the eyes closed, maybe gently opening them. Okay. So thank you for that. So both Edwin and I would like just to share a few reflections and about practicing in these times. And after that, as Meyer said, there'll be time to take some questions also. And I thought I would begin with just sharing a few reflections on practice. And, you know, first of all, I think it's really, really important to remember that all the different emotions that we're experiencing them doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. That it's completely normal and natural, and also that it's actually quite important that all emotions have a signal function, that they show us something so that we can act. So it's normal, it's understandable, and it's actually quite helpful, very, very helpful that we can experience fear when there's danger. So this is not something that we should think that, oh, I've been practicing for a long time and why do I experience all the different emotions that I do? But I think what is also really helpful is to come back just to the very, very basic principles of meditation practice. And, you know, the starting point, the only reason that we can know that these are troubled times, the only reason that we can know that these are challenging times is because we have awareness. So of course we know that. And yet, when we look at, how we may live our lives, what may happen during a day, we can also see that there are probably times when we sort of lose contact with that fact that we have awareness, where we lose the awareness of awareness, where we lose meta-awareness, right? So it's just really helpful to remind ourselves that the only reason I can experience what I'm experiencing is because I have awareness. And then that is also the door to really start to again remember, or to start to see that awareness is larger than whatever it is that we're experiencing. That awareness is not being affected by whatever experiences are unfolding in awareness. So we really start to again remember, always start to see that awareness is genuinely peace. Awareness is naturally peace, because we can still know whatever experience it is that we're having. And that knowing is awareness. And that knowing in itself does not get affected. And so when we connect with that, when we connect with awareness, that's the door to step out of this driven doing mode that we sometimes can find ourselves in, especially when we are in these very challenging times and we may be hijacked by different emotions, by fear. Some of us, we may have an experience that we start to freeze and we cannot feel much, and we don't know what to do. Others of us, we may have a sense of urgency and we should do something, but we don't really have so much clarity and so forth. But once we start to be aware of our experience, then we're already stepping out of that driven mode and we start to connect with awareness. And that's really also the door where we begin to have freedom to look at, what is it that I'm paying attention to? Where is my attention? And that's where the very, very simple practice instructions, where we can see if we're just caught in different thoughts, if we're just caught in different emotions, and we have an opportunity to come back to the body, for example. So it doesn't mean pushing the thoughts and emotions and everything away, but it means reconnecting with that sense of the body and the bodily awareness, so that it's either in the foreground or we're connecting with it in the background. But we can just find that this is really, really helpful as a way of grounding us in the moment, as a way of stepping out of that sense of being so driven. For some, the body is a really great resource, connecting with the body and our aliveness, the breathing, connecting with the felt sense of the feet maybe on the ground and so forth. So that can be really helpful. For some, it's something like sound, just being aware of whatever sounds are around us and connecting with that. Again, it's a way of stepping out of these experiences where thoughts, emotions, and so forth can escalate. If we just come back to simply hearing, come back to sounds. And awareness, when we are with our experience and we're just allowing it in this way, where we're not judging it, where we're not trying to change it, that's also when we get in touch with natural kindness. So we can really almost like ask ourselves, what is a kind way of being with our experience? A really kind way of being with our experience is to see it, is to know what our experience is before we start to change it, and before we start to judge it, and before we start to do all kinds of things. So being aware of our experience is also a door to kindness. And so we really get that sense of, wow, I have some natural kindness. This is actually natural kindness when I am aware of whatever experience I have. And so when I'm aware of whatever experience I have, and I have this natural kindness, that's also when I can actually nourish that and when I can cultivate that. And there's something, being aware of our experience, it helps immediately. It helps in the short run, because we're not feeding our experience, and when things are not escalating. So it helps immediately by paying attention to the body, by paying attention to sounds and so forth. We stop the thoughts from just escalating. So it helps in the short run, but it's also very empowering. It helps in the long run, because it really builds up our trust and our confidence that that we can face what we're facing, and there's something that we can do. So we don't have to be so worried about what emotions may come up or what kind of experiences we may have. So it also helps in the long run. And when we start to really be in touch with this natural kindness that is with awareness, then that's also, we can start to look at, in what other situations in my life do I actually see some kindness and other qualities also. So it helps us to begin to have a choice, so we can balance what we do with our attention. Sometimes we may see that there's a lot of attention that's placed in something that's not really helpful for us, and we can start to balance it. So I'm not in any way suggesting that we block our thoughts or emotions or that we suppress them, but we can just start to see that it's really helpful to balance it, to also be aware of other emotions, also to be aware of the kindness, and also to be aware of the compassion, and also to really see how it is a bridge to connecting with others. That this is really where we change the shape of how we are holding our experience, from something that might be quite narrow and contracted to allowing ourselves to open up. And that open mind, which is a kind mind, is also a mind that can see others and can be there for others and connect with others. So these are very simple ways of practicing with the instructions that we already have, or with some very simple instructions. And this time is also a time where we all have a lot of knowledge. We have a lot of self-knowledge, and our whole life is teaching on change, because we've been facing change, we've been facing loss and so forth. But yet we may also see that there's been some kind of disconnect, that even though we know that things are changing and we know impermanence, we can still see that maybe there's been this disconnect where we didn't fully live in a way where we really embodied that knowledge. And now, with things changing so fast and changing so rapidly, and our worlds being turned upside down, it's really an opportunity for us also to take that to heart, and to really live and to really embody what we already know, because we already know that things are changing, but now we can really begin to embody it, and we can really begin to look at, so what does that mean for how I live my life today? So we all have, like a more abstract motivation, that we would, we wish to be happy, we would like everybody to be happy, we wish to be free of suffering, that everybody is free of suffering. But now is really a time where we can ask ourselves, how does that translate into how I live my life today? How does that translate into what I do this very hour, what I do this very moment? And sometimes it may be translate into doing something for ourselves. Sometimes it may translate into doing something for others. So this question, what can I do? What can I do for myself? What can I do for others? Becomes a very practical question and becomes a very important question.
Thank you, Antonia.
Edwin?
That's a hard act to follow. Thank you very much. That was really wonderful, Antonia. I really, really appreciate what you said. Very, very helpful. For me, what I'm feeling is that just how grateful I am for my practice. I love what you said at the beginning, Antonia, that our practice is whatever we've been doing. It's the same practice today. It's the same practice tomorrow. It's not like as though we have to go and find some other special practice that is special for this special time or anything like that. It's the practice that we've been taught, what we've known, what we've heard, what we've put into, what our practices are, whatever it is that we do. We just continue to engage in those practices. That will support us through this time. In my own instance, I've been really aware just how much my thoughts have proliferated. You spoke to this, Antonia, not only the thoughts, but how the thoughts and the emotions are connected. When my thoughts proliferate and I'm worried about something, or I go down some rabbit hole about a what if scenario, imagining what might happen because of all of the craziness that's going on. And then I begin to notice how the emotions associated with all those imaginings start rising up inside me, contraction of the body, or fear or tightness in some way, and so forth. And just seeing how so grateful that this awareness is, that from time to time I'm able to be aware of all of this, just how the thoughts and the emotions are so connected. And it's so easy to get taken away by this. And Tim often speaks of this in a way that we become beguiled by our experience. And I really feel that at this moment, how easy it is to be swept away by imaginings about worst case scenarios and stuff you read in the media. I've also really noticed how easy it is to get obsessed with what's in the media, social media, the news, and just how easy it is to sort of spend an inordinate amount of time on various sites, reading everything, monitoring. Particularly, there's a couple of sites that keep tally of the number of people in every country that have the virus and what the deaths are and so forth. And so just being much more aware of how easy it is to obsess about all this sort of stuff. And I've been reminded of that wonderful, beautiful line from Mingyur Rinpoche's Nectar of the Path, where he says, "I will accept whatever happens and make it my friend." And I feel like that's exactly what Antonia was just talking about, is showing up for our experience and opening our heart to our experience, befriending everything that's going on, inviting it in, embracing it, welcoming it to be part of our practice, and applying whatever skills, the skillful methods that we have learned that come to us from this tradition, applying them in the face of whatever it is that we're encountering in our everyday life. One other thing that's really struck me is just the fundamental of the view from this tradition, this notion that we're all endowed with inherent goodness. And Antonia just spoke to that in a number of beautiful ways. Every time I've heard Mingyur Rinpoche talk about this, and it's in the early stuff that he taught on the joy of living, and I've heard him mention it many, many, many times in his teachings, he mentions 5 things that are the ways, the natural expressions of our inherent true nature, that are the ways we can recognize the natural expression of our true nature, and they are really the foundation of the practices that we do here. And of course, awareness. Awareness is the essence of meditation, and Antonia spoke to that very beautifully. Loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, and capabilities. These 5 things he mentions, I've heard him mention them many, many, many times. And so I don't think I need to say more about awareness. But I really loved what Antonia said too about loving kindness. You know, this wish to be at ease, this wish to be okay. How many times have you felt that in these last few weeks? You know, like, God, I just need to relax. I just need to be at ease. I just need to accept. I just need to let go, relax, you know, be with and be okay in what's going on. And then when we settle into that, we then naturally see this wish to take care of ourselves or take care of others. Compassion just naturally arises. And so I think it's really helpful in terms of our practice to just recognize how these manifest in our everyday life. We're wired this way. This is the way we're wired. It's natural that we would feel this way, and it's a natural expression of our innate true nature. And to know that, to recognize that, and then of course the capacity to discern, the wisdom is also there. I love the way Rinpoche talks about these 5 things. It's not like as though there's one, and then we have to go find the other 4. It's that we might recognize by connecting to one of them initially, but the other 4 show up at the same time. They're not like we have to go and look for wisdom or we have to go and look for compassion once we become aware. Once we become aware and connect the present moment experience, these other qualities of our true nature are naturally expressing themselves simultaneously, and they are immediately accessible in that moment because we have connected to our true nature. So yeah, I'm just so grateful for the view, the teachings, and the practice. And then the last thing I just want to say, how this naturally leads to what I have found and recognized over and over is the gratitude. You know, I am just so grateful that these practices are here. And when you connect, you know, that I've had the great fortune to encounter these practices, that I have actually managed to spend a little bit of time, you know, diligently practicing them over the years, and just how much of a foundation that is, and a basis on which I can now operate under these really, really challenging conditions. And you know, you see it, you know, it's not just the teachings, but you see it, as Antonia said, you know, you recognize this in your friends, you recognize this in other people in your community, you see it as people support each other. You know, Myoshin and I here at home, we're self-isolating. I still have to go and buy groceries, but we live very close to a very beautiful park. And so we're trying to go out at least every day and spend some time in the park. It's a big, open, spacious park. And over the weekend, we got out there a couple of times. There's still quite a few people there, but just noticing how, you know, we even met a couple of friends, a couple of people from the Tergar community yesterday. We stopped and talked to each other, but we kept our distance, at least, you know, 1.5 meters, 6 feet, whatever. And we could still have this, you know, it was just so beautiful to have that conversation and feel the love and connection, but in a very different way. We couldn't hug each other, we couldn't, you know, but still recognizing that even in these strange conditions, the fundamental expression of our true nature was still very present in that very human connection out in the park. And, you know, just seeing being in nature, breathing the fresh air, etc. So gratitude, I feel gratitude just naturally arising in this sense of wanting to support each other. I mean, you just see the way, you know, if you've been connected to social media, you will see, you know, communities in Spain and Italy, you know, singing and playing music across the balconies and so forth. It's just amazing how the beauty of how true nature is expressing itself at these times, and we don't have to look far to see it. So I'm really, you know, and part of me thinks that maybe this is it's nearly like the whole planet has been put on retreat right now. And there's something about that. I'm really kind of tuning into that. I actually have some, you know, I'm a little optimistic that we may come out the other end of this and be actually different, that humanity may be actually a little different. I'm hopeful. I must confess that it'll still be samsara, so it won't be truly satisfactory. But at least I'm hope that the dignity and beauty of human nature may find better, more creative ways to express itself after we get through this, and we will. So thanks very much for being here today. So I don't know, there's probably a lot of questions or comments. Meyer, if you want to read some out, we have a little time, we can respond.
Yes, so thank you so much to both of you. You already have been answering to a lot of questions that came in. Obviously, the normal question of what can we practice, how to deal with anxiety and fear and uncertainty and impermanence. And so you already gave a lot of great tips. I just want to remind for the people that maybe joined the call a little bit late that we are not going to have live questions. So I see that you have some hands raised. We are not going to have the possibility and the time to do live questions, but we are going to take written questions in the questions box. So few notes on these, please. If you have a questions, try to make it to the point, because I was trying to read all your comments and it was like more than 400. And it was really interesting to do while trying to listen to you, Edwin and Antonia. So if it doesn't make sense, it's because I was doing two things at a time. But we already had few questions in here that sounds to me interesting, and might have other people that might be in the same situation. So one is that we find ourselves isolated at home with families, which seems to be people that we love. But how do you do when you have a challenging family member?
Yes, that's a really great question. I don't know, many years ago I heard somebody say you can choose your friends but you can't choose your family, and yeah, it can be really challenging. I mean, in many ways, I don't, whatever Antonia and I just said about accepting whatever happens and make it your friend and applying your practice, then this might be a great opportunity to practice Tonglen or loving kindness or compassion, like very formally in a session each day. For if there's a member of your family you find yourself in close confinement with, that to make a part of your formal regular practice each day, specifically loving kindness or compassion for that individual. That's, I don't know, Antonia, if you've got any other better suggestions.
No, I think that is just to recognize that we are in very different situations, and even our own situation may change. So what can, for one be a lovely scenario is a nightmare for somebody else, to remember that. But also, I don't know, I find it really helpful to remember that when people are difficult, it's really because they're in pain.
Yeah.
And the more difficult they are, the more they are in pain. And that helps, to drop beyond the surface behavior and what we see, and just to recognize that there's actually a lot of pain in there. And that's yeah, so that's something that can help change the shape of our mind when we get very narrow and sort of start fighting with reality because it's one way and we would like it to be another way. When we see that pain and connect with it, it can help us to open up a little bit.
I think it's also really helpful to remember that the loving kindness and compassion practices, although we do them for others, are really intended to transform our own mind. And so when we're in close proximity with someone who we find challenging, being able to transform our own minds so that we can respond to the suffering of that individual in a more compassionate and caring way can really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and for all of us now, it's not to make suffering go away, but it's really learning to be in the midst of it. How can I be in the midst of this? Because it's not just going away. This is something that will be with us for some time, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I think we all have a challenging family members. Only when you are two, sometimes that's okay. So there is another question that came here, and I find very interesting because I have also myself felt that many times. It's so you gave a lot of great practice, mindfulness, compassion, all of this that we can do, but someone just says, I'm going to use his words because I really like that. So I'm so glad that I received this visual teaching that have already helped me a lot during the last days. My problem, like before the crisis, is really to just sit down and practice.
Yeah.
Do you have a few tips for that?
Yeah. So, if we can sit down and practice, it's great. If we can't, we can still practice, right? So we can practice no matter what we're doing. And for some, it may be, clearing the house or, vacuum cleaning and practicing. When I had a young son, I had years where collecting all his toys in the evening was part of my practice. So I would say, there's no reason to force ourselves to do something that we cannot do. So practice with when you're in movement, when you're doing different things, that's fine.
It's interesting. In some of the conversations I've had with some of the Tergar communities that I've been on conference calls with and so forth in recent days, I've heard a lot of people express that they're having difficulty or they're finding it challenging to do daily formal practice. And so I suspect that you're not the only one that finds this challenging. And so just to know that others are feeling similarly, I think is really helpful, and to, so that you normalize it in some way. And I think it's just a natural part of the energy is just so turbulent in some way, so fluid. There's a lot of anxiety. And sometimes when you sit down, all this energy just naturally you're put in touch with it. And to remain sitting on the cushion is more than you can do. And you just feel compelled to get up and do something. And I think it's okay, just to acknowledge that this is what's going on. This is the way I am right now. It's perfectly fine. And I loved what Antonia said. And I find myself doing similarly, get busy and clean the house, whatever you need to do.
Thanks so much again. This is great. So we have a few other questions that relate to the same thing. Is that about helping others? So since we're in isolation, we know we can't go outside. There are different questions, so I'm going to try to make one out of these. So someone is asking about, how can we help people that are more in need and that are poor, that are obviously maybe in a worse situation than ourselves, without getting out of home. How can we help someone that might lose a close one that is being affected by the virus, and that person is not in the Dharma? So is there something that we can do for those kind of people? And how to help others that might be in confinement with us that feel a lot of fear? And then the last part of the question would be with kids. I read in some comments that people have kids and the kids feel very emotional and anxiety and fear. So how can we help all those other people?
Mm.
Do you want to go first, Edwin?
Yeah, a few things came to mind because the same questions have come up on a number of the other forums I've been on recently. One this weekend with the local Minneapolis-St. Paul community. A couple of things that came up, and you might be able to find some similar kind of activities in your local community. One was that there's a critical shortage of masks in the United States of America for healthcare providers, and one of the local hospitals had put a pattern for a mask that can be made out of cloth, and people were busily at home making cloth masks for local hospitals that they could send. Another one was one of the people in our community worked for a homeless shelter, and they used to have community groups come in, like church groups would come in and cook for the local community, and they were unable now to do it. And so they were raising funds, and some of the local restaurants were providing food, but of course they were paying for it. So you could donate to the homeless shelter, and so they could buy food for the people in the shelter. So there may be ways in your local community that you might be able to do things like that to help others. That was just a couple of ideas that came to my mind, Antonia.
Yeah. So also sort of picking up on that, one of the things that I've really seen in many different countries is how local communities come together and how different activities happen on a local level. So that's one thing that to check out, what's going on, and maybe there's some organizations already happening or something that's organized that you can provide, that we all can sort of provide help to or funds to, or whatever it is that they're requiring. Then there's, I think we can all just, really ask ourselves this question, how does my large motivation, how does that translate into what I can do today? And it may just be remembering, to give people a call, to send people a message and so forth, to let them know that we're thinking about them, that we're there. And there was one who mentioned this also, if when people are losing their loved ones, and this is something that's, many of us will be facing losses now and the coming time and so forth. And we can always include people really in our practice, and we can let people know that we are there for them for a chat or whatever it is that might be helpful for them. But I think there's something about this, letting people know that we are available and to what degree we are available. And because I think it's really important to remember to take care of ourselves also, so that we can be there for others, and remembering this, that sometimes we may be more in the receiving end, sometimes we're more in the giving end, and this is completely natural, and this is actually very positive, that we're not just in one role, but we can take turns and be there for each other. This about with kids, kids who are experiencing anxiety, who are, everybody's world is turned upside down, and it is a tremendous change in one's life. One's life is, just a few years, so quite short. All of a sudden, not to be able to go to school, to kindergarten, to be with your friends and so forth, and maybe having parents also who are having genuine worries because their life is changing and so forth. So I think what we can do with kids is, first of all, to find ways to talk to them about, what's going on, to let them know that we are okay, and to let them know that we are there for them, and to give them space to talk about their worries and to be heard and to be met. I think being listened to is something that's extremely healing for everybody, and also for children, if they have that sense of really being listened to. And then, of course, being mindful, for one thing, for us, being mindful of how we are placing our attention, and noticing if we are feeding too much on news and social media and all of this that Edwin was talking about, but the same for our children also, to be aware of how much information they get, and in what situation they are when they get different kind of information. So I think this is something that's really helpful. But you know, I think for always with children and with all of us, it is really this learning to be with different emotions, and we do our best to help our children to be with the emotions that they're experiencing, and to be the sort of, yeah, to be the adults who are there for them and who carry them through also to the degree we can.
Yes, I just want to, this is a shout out to one of the beings I work with here in Minneapolis, to Elisa, who I was speaking with this morning. She and her wife have two girls. Both her and her wife are working from home. The two girls are home from school. Elisa told me they were going to listen to this webinar, so they may be watching us as we speak. But Elisa said that they had initiated 2 practice periods for the family, one in the morning for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and one in the afternoon. And I'm thinking, you know, like, because it's so disruptive, you know, this is not the normal everyday family routine. Everybody stuck inside, everybody at home, finding some sort of structure, finding some sort of way for the family to come together and formally practice together. I think it's a really great idea too, if you can. It may not be easy, of course. One of the other things I wanted to say is that, you know, those of us in Tergar who now that we've canceled all of our in-person programs, we're very rapidly looking at all the ways in which we can provide online programming, including Mingyur Rinpoche, and we hope within the not too distant future to be able to offer teachings, live streaming teachings by Mingyur Rinpoche and some of the instructors, and even practice sessions online. And we're also hoping to be able to deliver simple instructions for introduction to meditation. A lot of people I know that are part of the Tergar community who have been connected to Tergar for a time and have their own practice say that a lot of their friends who haven't got a meditation practice are asking them, you know, how can I learn meditation? You know, it's like all of a sudden they feel like a need to be able to have these tools to help them in some way. And so we're hoping to be able to quickly roll out a lot of stuff that can help support you as a Mingyur Rinpoche student and a member of the Tergar community. And we welcome you to share this with as many of your friends as you can to help support us in these, you know, unique times. So yeah, stuff will be coming.
Thank you so much, Edwin. Yeah, I wanted to pick a little bit on what you just said, because there is a lot going on now in Tergar, and we are all working a lot to try our best and make things available earlier than we planned, or more things available so we can all have things to watch or to work with from home. I just wanted to say also that maybe some of you doesn't know, but that the Joy of Living have been totally renewed. So for those who already have been taking those practices, and we were talking about, you know, the compassion practice and all of this practice, the Joy of Living 2, the new Joy of Living 2 online will start about 15th of May, hopefully. But all these practices can maybe help us in this time that, you know, we need maybe more structure for practicing and things like that. And as Edwin said, we are also working on the new introduction to meditation, so with new videos of Mingyur Rinpoche and maybe other things to come. So thank you very much. So we are a little bit over the hour. I don't know, guys, if you want to keep going or.
Probably should. It's probably getting late for some people in Europe. I'm happy to wrap it up. And is that okay with you, Antonia?
Yeah. Yes, that's fine.
So maybe we could. I could just take us out with a little reflection. You know, a couple of minutes, and we can close. So yeah, thank you all, everybody, for your attention and for joining us today, this evening, wherever you might be. Let's just take a little moment again to connect to awareness, to this present moment, and reflect a little bit on all that's been shared tonight, our connection individually with each other, our connection to Mingyur Rinpoche, to this lineage, to these amazing, valuable teachings that we've all had access to at this time. To let the gratitude and appreciation for the quality of these teachings, this amazing opportunity that we have been presented with to put these teachings into practice in this difficult and challenging time. And take a moment to reflect on the chaos and suffering that is spreading throughout the world. For those that we may know and those we don't know who are being seriously impacted by this disease, the loss of life, the disruption to our normal daily routines. And in this moment, just sharing whatever virtue, whatever merit may have been created by this time spent together. Let's dedicate this virtue to the welfare and happiness of all beings throughout our entire planet. May we have the strength to face whatever comes our way. May we have the capacity to assist, to help, to heal in whatever way we can. May our practice be a benefit for all beings. So thank you all. Much appreciation. Love
Thank
to you
you,
all.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to you, Meyer and Max, for your support on the back end. May you
Yes,
all
thank
be well.
you so much, Maya, Max, everybody.
Stay safe, stay well.
Thanks to both of you. We really appreciate your words tonight. And I'm so sorry for all the people that sent questions and we couldn't go through. We were a lot of participants. So we're going to have other meetings like this. So please keep, online, and we're going to send more news in the future. Thank you very much. Good evening or good day for everyone. Keep safe. Stay home. Bye-bye.